Mama Margaret bore it all in silence, never once complaining to anyone in the village. Her pride as a mother, her hope that Kofi would one day realize the pain she was enduring, kept her going. But whispers began to reach the ears of Uncle Ben, the village elder, who had always held Mama Margaret in high regard. One afternoon, Uncle Ben heard troubling stories from a woman named Charity who had returned from a visit to the city. She spoke of seeing Mama Margaret in Kofi's home, treated with cruelty and disdain by Amma and Madame Erica. She was treated like a servant, Charity had said, shaking her head in disbelief. Scrubbing floors while Amma and Madame Erica flaunted their wealth in front of her. Uncle Ben, heart heavy with sorrow for his old friend, knew he had to act. He visited Mama Margaret's home, sitting beside her in the shade of the old mango tree. He could see the weight of her suffering in her tired eyes, though she said nothing. "Mama Margaret," he began gently, "your silence speaks louder than words. You don't need to hide your pain from me." At first, Mama Margaret hesitated, but eventually she opened up. She spoke quietly of how Amma and Madame Erica treated her like she was beneath them, how her son Kofi stood by and said nothing as she was humiliated in his home. Uncle Ben listened, his heart aching for the woman who had given so much, only to be repaid with cruelty. After a long silence, Uncle Ben placed his hand on Mama Margaret's shoulder. "Kofi has lost his way, but it is not too late for him to find his path again. I will speak to him. He must remember the sacrifices you made for him, or he will lose far more than his wealth could ever give him." Determined to help, Uncle Ben made the journey to the city. He found Kofi's home as grand and luxurious as he had heard, but the coldness inside was palpable. Kofi greeted him warmly, but Uncle Ben could see the disconnect in his eyes, the distance between the man and the boy he had once been. Uncle Ben did not mince words. "Kofi, do you remember where you come from? The woman who gave everything so you could stand where you are today?" he asked, his voice filled with quiet authority. Kofi, taken aback by the elder's visit, hesitated. "Of course I do, Uncle Ben. I'm grateful to my mother, but life is different now." "Things have changed." Uncle Ben's gaze hardened. "Wealth does not change who you are, Kofi. It is your mother's sweat and tears that made you a man. Yet you allow her to be humiliated under your roof by your wife and her mother." "A tree that forgets its roots will surely fall," Nana Ose said as he left. His words struck Kofi deep, awakening the boy he once was. He began to see the truth, that no amount of wealth could replace the love and sacrifices of his mother. Kofi stormed into the living room, his voice shaking with anger and frustration. "Amma, Madame Erica, we need to talk," he said, struggling to control his emotions. But Amma barely looked up from the magazine she was reading. "What is it now, Kofi?" Amma asked, her voice dripping with indifference. Madame Erica gave him a cold glance, uninterested in whatever he had to say. "This ends now," Kofi shouted, his voice echoing through the grand hall. "The way you've treated my mother is disgraceful. She is not a servant. She raised me on her own, gave up everything for me, and yet you treat her like she's nothing," Amma sneered. "Oh, please, Kofi. Your mother belongs to the past. We live a different life now, and frankly, she's out of place." Kofi's voice grew cold and firm. "She is my mother. She deserves respect. If you cannot see that, then you do not belong in my life." Amma's face twisted with anger. "You're going to choose your mother over me? Over this life we've built together?" Kofi stood tall, his voice unwavering. "If my wife and her family cannot respect the woman who gave me life, then I have nothing left to say. I will not stand by and watch her be mistreated any longer." Madame Erica, realizing her influence was slipping, tried one last attempt. "You'll lose everything, Kofi. The business, the connections. Who will respect you if they see you groveling to that old woman?" But Kofi's decision was final. "I would rather lose everything and keep my dignity than continue living like this. Amma, humiliated and furious, stormed out of the room, followed by Madame Erica. The silence that followed was deafening, but for the first time in years, Kofi felt a sense of peace. He walked over to Mama Margaret, who had been quietly watching from the doorway, tears in her eyes. Kneeling before her, Kofi whispered, "I'm sorry, Ma. I failed you. But no more." Mama Margaret, with tears streaming down her face, placed her hand on her son's head. "You found your way back, my son. That is all that matters." "Mother!" Kofi cried, tears streaming down his face. "Please forgive me." Mama Margaret turned, her eyes soft but filled with sadness. "I will always love you, Kofi," she said, "but you must understand that true wealth is measured by the heart, not by riches." From that moment, Kofi vowed never to forget his mother's sacrifices. Though his confrontation with Ama and Mame Yah marked the end of his marriage, Kofi knew he had made the right choice. He had reclaimed his dignity and honored the woman who had given him everything. He returned to the village with his mother, choosing the simple life he had once fled. Together they found peace, far from the glittering illusions of wealth and status.
If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss another tale filled with wisdom and heart. Your support means the world to us. And together, we can keep sharing stories that inspire and uplift.